Okay, hello everybody. Gonna have a go at the Magnolia. Magnolia is a not too difficult pattern. Some of the branch bits are a little bit trickier, but I suggest if you find them a bit tricky, you just take some of that detail out. It's not going to make any difference. Well, it will make a bit of a difference, but it will look fine. So just take some of the bubbles and stuff out and have a more um, less shapes in it. The flower itself is not too difficult, but the main thing is you're going to have to get your tones right. So with this pattern, I'm going to work with one colour at a time and do all of those colours within the pattern. And I'm going to start with the lightest and then work my way up. I think that's the best way round, just so that I don't run out of colour. I've got more darks than I have lights, so I need to start with the lights. I have actually already started. You probably can't see. Let me see if I can find something to put behind it so you can see what I'm talking about. I need a piece of, I know what I can do. Let's just peel this back a bit. Here's my pattern underneath, that straight from the printer. I have an A3 printer, so it will print out as one size. You will probably have 3 pieces to make. I don't know if I do 3 or 4 pieces that will stick together to make the same pattern. I've run out of black ink, so mine's in blue. But let me just pop there we go. I've got a bit of red paper, and you'll see that I have already started to put my white pieces on. Piece down here as well. So I'm now on to the next colour up. This flower is all about the highlights, so you need to, get your highlights in really nice and pale to start with. So I'm now going to move on to the next colour, and for that I'm going to use this fabric. It's got a pinky tinge to it. I have cut out one piece already, which is this bit down here. There it is. This is parchment paper, same as usual. Greaseproof paper over here in the UK. Not quite cut that top out. Let's put it back on a second. All my fabric is fused up with Bonder web, which I think is very similar to Wonder Under in the US. I use Bonder web over here in the UK because actually I don't use Bonder web. I do and I don't. Sometimes I do if I can get it on offer. But there's on eBay there is actually a fusible that you can buy, which is even very similar. It has more of a meshy type feel to it than Bondaweb, which is more of a sheet. So when you peel it off, it's got more of a mesh on it, but it sticks perfectly well. The only thing is on the very thin pieces, you can see like the meshy. I don't know if you. I don't think it was going to show up on here. Let's see if I can find a piece. So. Here on the greens, you can sort of see, you can kind of just see that sort of scaly type, and that's just the mesh underneath. You can see there, that's the mesh underneath. But it works out much cheaper for me because I use a lot. I buy a 30-meter roll at a time. It doesn't take me all that long to get through it. So just saves me a little bit of money, and it works perfectly fine. Like I said, just on a very thin fabric, you can some, but even that, by the time you've sewn it, you really don't. It's not something that sticks out, you know. Okay, so mostly against all of these white pieces that I've put in, the next colour next to it is going to be this. There we go. Peel it off. With a slab of tea. There we go. Proof. I bet you heard all of that in the microphone, didn't you? I do apologise. I didn't think of that. Okay, so there's also a couple of bits up here. Squeeze them in on the edge there so we're not wasting too much fabric. Right, let's put this back down again. Something you could see before. There we go, so that's going to slide in there. Oh, it's come straight off. It's a good sign, isn't it? If you find that happens, what I suggest you do is just turn that top over a bit, but it was actually a little bit long anyway, so we can just do without it. Sometimes the fabric is just a wee bit sticky, so if you do find that happens, just get yourself another piece of parchment paper and put it over the top. Good practice would say that you should be doing that anyway, so you keep everything nice and clean. but you know, life's a little bit short. Okay, so over here, this piece in here I want. I'm just referring back to my colour version all the time. I think I've said before, I don't really work in tone and values. I just go by eye, really. The only time I find, I'm not saying the only time, it's just the way I work is not, I work in colour rather than in values. But the only time personally I find values useful is if you're looking at your piece of work and there's something not right, and you look at it, and you look at it, and you just cannot work out what it is. Often, if you change your picture if you take a photograph of it and change it to a black and white version of your picture, it will often jump out. The problem will often jump out of the page as if to say, well, why couldn't you see that? And then once you've seen it, you can't not see it. It's very weird. I obviously got a slightly sticky iron, so I'm just going to give it a bit of a scratch down. I'm afraid the plate of my clover is long gone past the stage where I worry about just using a knife across the top of it. I'll get a new one at some stage, but at the moment, just scratch it off. Okay, so I'm then gonna knead it in this little spot over here, just a tiny little bit in here. I find the hardest part doing collage is finding the bit that you just drew out and putting it back down again. Trying to remember where you drew round, and there we go. Let's take the sticky off of that now, that's alright. Okay, next piece. It's going to be this piece that basically runs all the way through up like this. There we go, like that. Oh, and it actually drops down the other side. No, it doesn't, that's another piece. So we can ignore that. So just draw around that. Don't have to do this too carefully because it's going to go under the other piece of fabric. So cut that out so it's not quite so wieldy. Go. Cut out nice and easily. And then I think this is the last piece of this colour. So I'm going to drop it behind this white piece. I am going to just rub out that pencil line that I put in a bit, because pencil does have a bit of a habit of coming through, especially on thinner fabrics. You'll have to peel it back, and there you'll have your pencil line running along your fabric as well. There you go. Right, so that's all that colour. And got a bit of a jump up then to the next colour. It's a bit darker. I wonder if that's too dark. I'll just have a quick squiz through my pink drawer. It's probably not dark enough. That might work. It's more or less the same as that, yes. Is that the same? Yes. Is that colour? Yes. So I've got plenty of that. You go with the drinking, of course. Got this as well. I do quite like that. It might work quite well. It's quite nice as well. I quite like that still. Like I say, I haven't got vast amounts of pale pink. Quite a lot of dark pinks, dusky pinks, but not huge amounts of darker pinks. So if I use that, I could then use that afterwards. Just using this sort of area here. I haven't got huge amounts to do in that colour. So I think we'll go with that. So again, it's just basically against the pieces that I've already done. So let's just push this up a bit. So it's these two pieces here. You can see there. And it's then going to be this piece that runs around there. Doesn't have to be terribly well drawn out along the line that I'm going to tuck it under. But obviously that line there does need to be quite good. So I'm just going to use this. This fabric that I'm using here is actually a curtain fabric. I'll use anything, as long as it's not too thick. I'm happy to use anything. I think it gives it slightly extra dimension. May not be as neat and tidy, because some of these fabrics tend to be a little bit more on the fray side. But again, I'm not fussed by that. For me, it's part of the charm. The handmade feel is part of the charm. It's too perfect. Oh, my work's never going to be perfect. But it's too perfect. It sort of loses it a little bit in my eyes. So that's just going to go in like that. Let's get it in place. That works quite well, that colour together. And then there is just another little lip that runs along there. And then I can use one of these dark ones I found. I can use that against it. I'm just going to put it in straight away. There we go. I just run my finger around the edge of the fabric that has to come up. Comes up quite easily off of the parchment paper. Always check that that is the case, because not all parchment papers are made the same. Some you'll find definitely have a side to them that I find will be less non-stick than the other side. This one that I'm using at the moment is about the cheapest that I can possibly buy, and it works perfectly. So it's not, but do always check that your fusible will peel off your parchment paper before you go too far. It's going to be awfully disappointing. So we've got the two tones running through there, comes round like that. So I'm going to do both again. So that's the slightly darker tone on the outside. Sorry if you can hear the background, it's in another room. It's the telly. Rugby today. Okay. Just lift that up. Slot it in. And it's always the way I draw two pieces out and can never find the second piece, so I have to draw it out again. This doesn't have to be accurate at all because I'm apart from along that edge there, because it's going to tuck behind everything. It's that way around, so I'm just going to rip that off. I do need to make sure that bottom going across there is accurate though. And because this, I've said this is an upholsterer, but you can see it's just fraying slightly. So after I've pulled the fusible off, just go back round again. Because just even pulling the fusible off can make it fray slightly, but because it's all going to be tucked in, it will be fine. Put my hands out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because we've come up for half an hour, more or less. I shall carry on and we'll come back. I'm just warning you, I'm not going to sew this because I have a different project in mind for this pattern. I think most of you have seen the drawers that I made, the fusible one. I bought a very rusty, very rusty metal cabinet. I mean, I like the rustiness. I like that kind of shabby chic, but I'm going to use these. I'm going to use the flower. I'm going to make more than one flowers, and I'm going to have it coming up the cabinet. I'll post some pictures of the cabinet, and you'll see what a Herculean task I've got on my hands. But I'm going to use these to actually stick onto the cabinet. So I'm not going to stitch them, but I'm going to varnish them. I've used varnish on some of my other metal cabinets and it's worked really well, so I don't see why it shouldn't work on these. So there won't be any stitching. There won't be a stitching video. That's basically what I'm saying. And there won't be a background video, but my background for this project, I did just a plain background because I wanted the flower to stand out really well. But obviously the background is up to you. But just to give you a warning, no stitching video. I'm sure you're quite relieved, because I am, because you know how much stitching and me don't really get on terribly well. Okay then, so bye for now.